Yeah, so some great creative images in there tonight. So let's make a start. I think we've got some great tones in this. I love that contrast between the reds and the dark grey, almost, you know, that little tint of sort of bluish within the grey. So it gives great colour balance between the two images, and that's sort of matched up with the blues and greys of the accordion player's jacket and the reds that we've got in there as well. I think you've cropped it really nicely. I love the shape that we've got on the lanterns there. The draw through that we've got with the benches, and then the sort of interaction between the two characters. The one busily playing away, don't know whether he's singing or not as well, and the guy looking over at him. I think the light that we've got coming down from each of those lamps works really nicely. I just wonder whether the trousers perhaps a little bit dark, considering we can still see light here. But overall, I think that is an excellent image, and I'm starting off with hold back, please. Okay, this really hit me straight away as being not only dynamic with the way that it's put together, but the thought process that has gone into creating a creative image of this nature. I think it's very different to what we see a lot of the time with creative work. So the way that we sort of got the spikes, the claws almost of the hands shooting off, and almost the crown, the spikes, just works so fantastically well. The colours all blend in nicely together as well. I love the angle that we've got on the face, and that sort of little bit of movement that we've got going through there with the blues and the oranges and the whites. I wonder whether there's perhaps just a little bit too much of the sort of texture around the bottom. There's sort of more down there, but I suppose she's bursting through. You are going to get more at the bottom than you are at the top. I think the colours on it are fantastic. I think you've worked those through really nicely. Just wonder whether we ought to have stopped the two lines here just before the edge, because it's almost continuing out of the image. So I just wonder whether we should have just stopped them a little bit earlier. There's another one I'm going to hold back, please. Certainly does look like somebody on the prowl, doesn't it? Carrying that the sword there that he's got. I love the feel of the background on this image. I think sort of the density and depth of some of the colours that we've got here are working really, really nicely. I think, however, though, that the shadows on the person are just a little bit too dark, a little bit too black. We sort of lose his leg altogether here. Obviously, no detail inside the cape there, but under the arms. I'd just like to have seen, because we're so well lit on either side, I would expect a little bit more light perhaps coming in here from there. I also found that the sword is a little bit too bright. I think I would like that to have been more of a colour of the chainmail, make it a little bit greyer. Because it takes your eye straight away, and yes, it's part of the image on the prowl, but I just think it's too bright. Also around the edges, where again the darkness in the corners brings your eyes into the right place within the image, but we're sort of losing any kind of detail here at all. So as we're looking at this part of the image, if we hadn't have got that line there, you wouldn't know where the image stopped and the and sort of the background started. So it may have been worth just putting a 1 or 2 pixel thin line around the edge of that image. But yeah, I'm going to let it go at the moment. I just think there are areas that are just a little bit too black. Okay, yeah, somebody's had a little bit of fun, whether you've done it at home or in the studio or at the camera club. It looks very much like it's ink dropped in to water, but of course you can create a similar sort of effect with smoke as well. So the title, Welcome to Hades, I think the colours work really well for that. I sort of like the patterns and the mixtures that we've got here, as well as the bit and the swirls we've got there. The background, again, similar to the first image, the blue and the reds work really well together for me. But overall, I just feel it needs a little bit of something else. We sort of mentioned Hades in there. I think it just needs to be a little bit scarier somehow. I just wonder whether, opposite to what I said about the last image, whether we could darken some of the shadows down a bit in the corners, just to make it look a little bit more, a little scarier. It just needs a bit extra to keep up with some of the others that I'm going to hold back tonight. So I'll let that one go. Again, you're working well with your colours on this shot. I love the greeny pedigree against the blues in the background, and the sort of very pastel-y violets that we've got in the dress work really nicely as well. Obviously, Venice, we know where we are, whether it's at Carnival or whether it's another time doesn't really matter. But the background does suit the image. It's good to have everything all in that one place. I just get led a little bit by that sort of white line there coming in from the corner. I think that perhaps ought to have been just toned down or cloned out to be the same colour. It just distracts me a little bit in that corner. But overall with this one, I think the texture that you've put on it is just a little bit too heavy for my liking. There's an awful lot there that is about the texture, and particularly over the dress. I think if we'd have had part of this area with not so much texture in it, it just would have worked a little bit better. But I think for me, the texture is just a little bit overpowering. So I'm going to let that one go as well. Now this was one image that I ummed and ahed about quite a bit. I think it's been put together beautifully. I think there are lots of nice elements. Again, you've worked really nicely with the pastel colours. And although the texture is quite heavy, it's not as small as it was on that previous image, so it doesn't overpower the image at all. So what I really like is the base area. I really like the colours. I really like the plants coming through. We've got great composition with the trunk for the kestrel to be on. Where I lose it a little bit is the connection between it all. I think that the birds coming from this corner, coming out, just aren't random enough for my liking. We've almost got a straight edge that we can draw along both sides of it. And I'd like that to have been a little bit more random. And I think the balloon's then going a little bit too much. So we've ended up with an image, for me, where we've got too much that we need to be looking at, rather than making something a little bit simpler. So I think if we'd have had fewer birds there, a bit more random pattern, and without the balloon, and just done that with the kestrel then becomes the main subject matter. It almost looks like then it would be tracking the birds that potentially could be prey. But I think it's just, for me, just a little bit too much in that image. So I am going to let it go. This is another one that I really, really like. I love the movement that we've got across the sands, through to the water, through to the skyline, through to the sky and the clouds above it. We are fairly central with that horizon line, and just something that just toyed with my mind a little bit as I've looked at this one. We sort of got the dark sand, the lighter sand, then it goes a bit darker as it gets towards the water. Now, the sort of the lighter sand, the drier sand, and the darker sand as it's close to the water, I understand that. There's nothing showing me why we sort of darker again at the front. You'd normally expect that front piece of sand to be lighter again. With the horizon line being central, I think that it works in this instance. I don't think we need to crop it, but I just think, again, in the competition that it's in tonight, just feel like it needs a little bit of something extra, something that would just break that horizon line to help connect the sea and the sky through to the sand. If you cover the bottom and cover the sky, you've almost got the two images. There's no connection. So a little sailboat, something like that, that just helps connect the two together. So although I love the colours, I love the texture, I love the way that you've done it, just not quite up there with some of the others that I've enjoyed looking at. So I'm going to let that one go as well. Beautiful little birds, aren't they? The colours that they get as they come into the mating season, they'll soon be back around our coasts. And we've sort of almost got that love heart shape there, haven't we, that works really, really nicely. And you have brought that colour out with pin sharp. We can see the feather detail. I think that works really well. A little bit bright in the background, and I'm thinking with a little bit of extra colour we've got here. I'm just wondering whether that would have been better out, because you're again separate colour to the rest of it. You see that colour, then you move up to there, so your eye is drawn up that way. But as a creative image, and the images that it's alongside tonight, I feel that yes, this image may have been created. The birds may be two separate birds on two separate layers, have been brought together. The background may have brought in separately. But after all of that, it still looks like a nature shot. It doesn't particularly look like a creative shot. So you've got to be a little bit careful with that, because I feel that it is created, but perhaps isn't a creative image. So I'm going to let that one go as well. I absolutely love here again, though, the pastel-y colours that we've brought in to this image. It's not very often that you will see an image where we sort of use a whiter vignette around it. Normally you use the darker vignette to draw your eyes in, but here that white works absolutely beautifully. And the way that it's angled here, and it all leads you through, every position leads you through to the person. A little bit of red just in that black doorway stands out, and then the house is clear, nice and sharp, and then those beautiful soft sort of watercolour poppies that are around and over the top. I think that's a beautiful creative image, and I'll see that one again, please. Everybody's probably had a go at the moving the camera. Some people go up, some people go down as you're doing your ICM shots. This is a great example of it. We've got beautiful colours. You certainly know how to tie your colours together. The greens, the bits of gold that are shining through, absolutely superb against the sort of auburn and russet base that we've got on the image. The trunks all going up nicely. Possibly a little bit dark on that one, but yeah, these are working fantastically well. So it is those little bits, those little sprinklings of gold in there that help tie those colours all together. So with this, you could have done it creatively in your processing software. It could be done creatively within the camera. So however this has been done creatively, I think it works really nicely. And I will hold that one back as well, please. Got some great colour again here. The richness in the dress is superb, and it works so nicely with the gold of the jewellery. That direct stare, the eyes are looking straight down the lens as the photographer has taken that picture. So that works really quite nicely as well. The eyes, possibly whiten the eyes up just a little bit too much. They just attract your attention a little bit, being a bit too bright in the whites of the eyes. But in some ways, this image is sort of very similar to the puffins in that respect. We have probably changed the background and we've put the new background on and sort of, yes, it meets the definition of creative because we've changed that, but it looks like a straight portrait shot. So although we've done some creative work, are we actually, ask yourself whether we're actually creating a creative image. I think from a portrait point of view, I'd just like to have seen the head tilted a little bit, just to get the eyes on a slight diagonal. And I'm just unsure about whether just seeing this little bit of a arm down at the bottom, whether we need that or not. Because we're quite strong with this arm leading us straight up onto our face, so I'm not sure we do need that little bit down towards that corner. I don't think that the pastely pale colours of the background work that well with the brightness of and the vibrancy of the colours in the person. So I'm not sure really whether the background works as well with that image. So I shall let that one go. I really like this one again as well. Very Turner-esque with the ships and the boats. I'm loving the way that we are getting the water flow that we've done here. The way that we're getting the splashes in the waves, and you've got it coming up nicely against the boat. There's great detail in the boat there, great light hitting that side of the boat. That works nicely. Potentially a little bit dark here, but it's not too big an area. We can still see some detail in that bit, and there's the odd bit of detail that we can see in the blacks there. I think the birds work quite nicely, following the direction of sort of the way that the flag's been moving around on the top of the boat. And the way that we've got the light hitting the boat, it's working with the way in the side that it's hitting the waves, it's working with the way that it's hitting the buildings in the background. And we've got a great sky to go with it. Sort of that, given that painterly effect, I think that works really nicely. So that's another one I will hold back, please. Yeah, I like the idea of this one. It's you're really warping your mind as well as sort of warping the photograph here. So, you know, we've just about got coming from the corner. We follow the green. It takes us through. It points its way up. It then follows us round with the swirl of the land, which then matches that almost that paisley pattern we've got there, which then matches the sky and moves all the way back again. The shadow that we've got from here is taking us all the way up to the house, and the person there is included for a little bit of scale. The bit I don't like so much is the person on the sort of the penny farthing there. The lighting doesn't look quite right. It looks a bit harsh. It looks as if that's, you know, we've got worked on a sort of general flat lighting idea here, but the person on here looks like they've been in bright sunshine with the light coming down on the back of them. And sort of the clothing that person's wearing is not in keeping with what you'd expect really for a penny farthing. I think, although it's an abstract image, I'm just not sure that is working as well as it should be. We've sort of got the textures coming through on the other areas of interest. We haven't so much there. It does look more like a photograph on that area than sort of part of an abstract creative image. So I just unsure about that. Whether that person had been in period dress, whether that might have worked a little bit better. I understand the idea of it, going round and swirling round. But there needs to be a little bit of distortion, I think, as well, because they're right on that curve. So a little bit of distortion, I think, would work better. So I will let that one go as well. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic idea. Jumping out of the frame, I think it's been really well done in that respect. Putting that the border on, what they're jumping out to. You know, we're almost really looking at that 3D effect, aren't we, with that blurred background and somebody jumping right off the page, right off the screen into the audience. So the idea of that works nicely. Again, with the eyes, I do think the eyes, I think this is the sclera, the white area of the eyes has been brightened too much. I think they're too white. The rest of the eyes are black. We're not seeing any other iris in there, any separate colour with the iris. But if the whites of the eyes are that bright, there's that much light getting in there, you would expect to see some colour on the iris. But we've also got little bits on the soles of the feet where we are just a little bit too bright. So again, at these points in particular at the end, just needs toning down a little bit. It becomes too bright. So again, I'm going to let that one go. Back to the pastels again. I've just looking at these images and the way that you've utilised pastels in your work here. The way that we've got this stallion coming out of almost out of the clouds. That works really nicely for me. I do like some of the textures we've got in the background. It almost looks like it's in a forest. It's in some trees. We've got what appears to be the odd branches coming up and over. But the way that we've masked that, but still kept some of that coming through, works really nicely. Could we have done perhaps with a little bit more room on this side? It's a little bit central, perhaps just a little bit more space here, give it a bit more room to move into, rather than it being dead central within the image. But I love the way that you that sort of blended in with the patterns and the cloud and the texture that you've used in there. So I'm going to hold that one back as well, please.
Good luck. Does any chance you put people
Okay, so we get the right sheet. The commended in the creative. Again, they're so close between all of those, even those that didn't get held back. The quality of this creative section was really good. So yeah, White Stallion. Just love the pastels on that. Love that cloud-like feel, but love the way that you've used sort of trees in the background to give it that texture almost as well. So yeah, lovely shot. Very different. Now this one, you know, perhaps isn't or won't be everybody's cup of tea, but it's different. It is creative, and I like the way that you have done this. So yeah, I thought that was worth a commended shot. That. So now on to highly commended. I love that the sort of the colour palette that you've got in this image with the red and the blues. You know, if we had got a little bit more in the trouser, it may have got into one of the places. I just think because we can see every board that's not in the direct light, we perhaps ought to have seen a bit more detail in his trouser. But the composition of that is lovely. So that was a highly commended. So and then into third place, one of the best ICO tree shots I think I've seen. I love those bits of gold that we've got coming down. People very often do this sort of shots with bluebells. The bluebells are around, but this has worked really quite nicely with those autumn colours in there. So we'll put that as third. Sailing past Bamburgh, second. I think it's got a great feel to it. You know, we saw that on the wall. Somebody you've almost got to turn the painting on there. So I think that works really nicely. Could so easily have won. It was just up against an image that I thought was exceptional as a creative shot, and that was that one. I just think the way that that's being put together from the geese, the person walking with the bags to the house, I mean, just framing that person so that the hat of red is against the darkness of that doorway just works so nicely. But then the sort of the muted pastel colours we've got up there. Yeah, I love that image. I easily see lots of people having that on their wall.
Okay, so can we look at these already out of time? Commended, White Stallion, and Ice Cream as well. They're both Martin James. But it's not. The performer on there. Sentinels. Second place, sailing past Bamburgh, guess who? Horace. Horace. First place. Great images.